There is a moment in every person's life when something small happens and it hits harder than it should. Maybe someone you love takes a little longer to text back and your mind spirals. Maybe during a conversation you hear a slightly sharp tone and suddenly your chest tightens and your thoughts race and you feel like you did something wrong, even if nothing actually happened. Or maybe you notice that every relationship you enter seems to follow the same script and you keep wondering how the same pain keeps finding you even when the people involved are different. It feels random on the surface, but deep inside there is a pattern, and most people have no idea that this pattern was created long before adulthood. It was written quietly during childhood, in moments you barely remember yet still carry in your nervous system today. Most adults do not wake up and think, "I act this way because of something that happened when I was 7. Instead, we tell ourselves that we are overreacting or being too emotional or not strong enough or that something is wrong with us. But none of this is true. We are not broken. We are patterned. And the patterns are not conscious choices. They are echoes of old wounds that formed when we were too young to protect ourselves, too dependent to walk away, and too innocent to understand that what we were feeling was shaping the rest of our lives. Childhood creates the blueprint, not just for how we love, but for how we trust, how we communicate, or we attach, how we defend ourselves, how we withdraw, how we cling, and how we show up in the world. When you are a child, you do not analyze your environment. You absorb Italiano, you do not decide what love is. You learn it from the people who give it to you. You do not choose your coping mechanisms. They grow naturally from whatever keeps you safe, accepted, and emotionally intact in the moment. So when people say your past shapes you, they are not talking about big dramatic events alone. They are talking about the 1,000 tiny interactions that taught your nervous system what it needed to do to survive. Some childhood wounds are loud, others are silent but powerful, and whether you remember them or not, they continue to influence your adult relationships, your confidence, your fears, and even the way you interpret neutral situations. A delayed text can feel like abandonment. A simple disagreement can feel like rejection. A partner's hesitation can feel like betrayal. A quiet night alone can feel like something is wrong. And none of this means you are dramatic. It means something very old is speaking. There are 4 childhood wounds that tend to show up in adulthood more than people realize. They influence the way we love, the way we suffer, and the way we protect ourselves. These wounds are not labels, and they are not life sentences. They are stories, and once you see them clearly, you can rewrite them. But first, you need to understand where they came from and how they still live inside you. The first wound is abandonment. This wound forms when a child experiences emotional or physical absence from a caregiver. It does not have to be dramatic. It might be a parent who is always busy, or emotionally distant, or overwhelmed. It could be divorce, illness, addiction, or simply a home where affection was inconsistent. A child who grows up feeling like the people they depend on might leave them, or forget them, or turn away, often learns to cling tightly in relationships. They may become hyper-aware of distance. They may panic when someone pulls back even slightly. They may chase affection with intensity because losing it feels unbearable. Yet at the same time, once they have love, they may fear it because the possibility of losing it feels like a threat rather than a gift. Adults with abandonment wounds often say things like, "I hate how needy I become," or "I know it sounds crazy, but when they don't respond I feel physically sick." They are not crazy. Their nervous system is reacting to a threat that was very real once. A child who felt alone will grow into an adult who fears separation because separation once felt like danger. And even when they intellectually know they are safe, their body remembers the ache of waiting for someone who never came the way they needed them to. The second wound is rejection. This wound forms when a child is criticized, judged, or made to feel unworthy or unwanted. It may come from harsh parenting, or being compared to siblings, or growing up in a home where affection was conditional. Sometimes it forms in kids who were sensitive and grew up hearing things like "stop crying," or "you are too much," or "why are you like this?" These messages do not just hurt in the moment. They teach a child that their authentic self might cost them love. So they learn to shrink, to perfect, to please, and to analyze every social interaction in order to avoid being hurt again. Adults with rejection wounds often become incredible overthinkers. They replay conversations repeatedly. They fear being a burden. They apologize constantly, even when nothing is their fault. They may also struggle with self-worth because their inner voice was shaped by critical outer voices. Perfectionism becomes a shield against being judged. Avoidance becomes safer than vulnerability because vulnerability once led to pain. And when someone gives them affection, they struggle to trust it because part of them believes they will eventually be judged or pushed away again. The third wound is betrayal. This one forms when a caregiver promises safety or love but behaves in ways that break that trust. It may come from a parent who is inconsistent, who lied, who broke promises, or who behaved in unpredictable or chaotic ways. Children rely entirely on the dependability of caregivers. When that dependability wavers, the child learns to be hypervigilant. They learn to scan for danger. They learn that trust is fragile, and often they learn to take control, because control feels like the only way to prevent being hurt again. Adults with betrayal wounds may struggle deeply with trust. They may find themselves always expecting people to change, to leave, or to disappoint them. They may hold back emotionally until they are certain it is safe. And even when they love someone fully, they might test them to see if they will stay. They often become the leaders, the planners, the ones who hold everything together, because they learned early in life that relying on someone else can lead to disappointment. And because of this, they might choose partners who recreate the inconsistency they grew up with. Not because they want chaos, but because chaos is familiar. The fourth wound is enmeshment. This one is subtle but powerful. It forms when a child grows up in a home where their boundaries are not respected, or where they are emotionally responsible for a parent. Maybe they were the peacekeeper, or the emotional support, or the one who had to grow up early. In these homes, the child learns that their needs must come second, and that their role is to manage the feelings of others. They learn to be the strong one, the reliable one, the caretaker, and eventually, they stop knowing who they are outside of what people expect from them. Adults with enmeshment wounds often become chronic people. They feel guilty setting boundaries. They feel responsible for everyone's emotions. They may choose partners who depend on them heavily because being needed feels like love, but it also becomes exhausting. Over time, they may feel invisible because they never learned how to prioritize themselves without feeling selfish. Their identity becomes tangled in the role they play for others, and they may wake up one day feeling lost in a life that was built around everyone else's needs. These wounds do not exist in isolation. Many people carry pieces of several, and each one shapes adult behavior in ways that feel deeply personal, yet are actually deeply predictable. The wounds influence who you are drawn to. They influence why certain people feel magnetic. They influence why certain situations make you panic or shut down. They influence the stories you tell yourself about your worth, your relationships, and your future. A person with an abandonment wound may find themselves attached to emotionally distant partners because they hope to rewrite the old story. A person with a rejection wound may walk into rooms scanning for signs of disapproval before they even say a word. A person with a betrayal wound may sabotage closeness because it feels safer to leave before being left. A person with enmeshment may sacrifice their own happiness to maintain harmony because conflict feels like a threat. But here is the important thing. These patterns are not your personality. They are your protection. They are not defects. They are adaptations. They were created by a child who did the best they could with what they had, and that means they can change. Healing begins the moment you recognize the pattern, when you notice that the panic you feel is not truly about the person in front of you, but about something much older. When you notice that your urge to run is not coming from the present moment, but from a past moment that left a scar. When you realize that your inability to say no or ask for what you need is not a character flaw, but a habit formed in a home where your needs were not safe to express. Healing does not look like perfection. It looks like awareness. It looks like pausing before reacting. It looks like asking yourself, is this pain coming from now or from then? It looks like learning to speak to yourself with the kindness you never received. It looks like reparenting the younger version of you who never got what they needed. It looks like choosing partners who feel safe instead of partners who feel familiar. It looks like taking risks with honesty even when your voice shakes. It looks like honoring your boundaries and trusting that the right people will respect them. Healing happens slowly. It happens in tiny moments where you choose differently. And the more you choose differently, the more your brain learns that the old story is not the only story. Eventually, the things that once felt threatening become manageable. The things that once triggered panic become opportunities for growth. And the wounds that once dictated your behavior become reminders of how far you have come. The most beautiful moment in healing is when you realize that the past is not a life sentence. It is simply a beginning. And you get to write the rest. The patterns that once controlled you lose their grip the moment you see them clearly, and the moment you understand the origin of your pain, you stop blaming yourself for it. The child in you still lives inside you, but now you are the adult. You are the one who chooses how to respond. You are the one who can offer safety, love, patience, and understanding. You are the one who can become what you needed. And when that happens, the old wounds stop running your life. They stop choosing your relationships. They stop dictating your self-worth. They stop shaping your identity. You are not your wound. You are the one who is healing it. And that is a story that will carry you forward.